The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another week of Mission Minded. Keep in mind your mission your mind. He's Michael Coleman, the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Not only a great friend, great sponsor. They do wonderful work down there, Heart of Alabama Food Bank, HAFD. Check them out. Hashtag that bad boy. And, of course, check them out, .org.com, .net, wherever you go to your dots. So you can find their website. They do wonderful work. And we always keep you in mind, your mission, your mind. BBB, Bite by Bite, is going to be coming here next. A show that's specific to the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. This is more of a kind of a business show. And you wanted to talk about maybe not specifically the No Kings protest, but since it is, I guess it's the protest of the day. Is that right? I think there's a website actually you can go to and look at protest of the day. And it actually tells you where the protests are, what's it for, what's it about, how to become part of it. And I want to back up before we jump in to whether protests are a good thing or not. But for me, anyway, we've been doing this ever since this country was before it was ever a country, right? And I think, and you mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. before we came on, who was king of the great protest that they knew when to take a knee, they knew when to turn around. For the most part, the demonstrations were not violent, certainly not from his side. But we've got a new thing going on now where and I'm hoping you can tell me if this is true or not. Are people actually being paid to be violent at protest?
They're definitely being paid. To the evidence so far is coming out more and more.
Who's paying them?
Well, it's the people. Probably the number one. The greatest suspect in this is George Soros. So George Soros is from Europe. He's a billionaire. He seeks to create a lot of chaos and undermine some of our governmental systems. You see it on a big level, but you also see he's done a lot of time. He's done a lot to help local district attorneys running for office. This is an example, who are more progressive in their thoughts, who are not as tough on crime, those kind of things, because those are just ways to undermine a community and undermine. And so there's a lot of that. Now, he may sit down and explain it, but he's definitely very, very left. And anything that undermines traditional American values, he's going to be about support. And people say, well, what's your evidence? Well, some of it is pretty obvious. So if you go down to things like the protest in LA when they were, burning, there was trucks that were pulling up and they were giving out tactical vests to everybody coming by.
Yeah.
Okay. Those things are not cheap.
No.
And so you don't have a good citizen who goes, you know what, I'm going to go buy a case, dozens and dozens and dozens of boxes, and be handing out randomly tactical vests to people. So when you look around the nation, what you'll see organization. You'll see pre-printed signs. Those are not cheap, but the messaging is the same across these. And there's even a guy who I saw who owns a company, and that's what the company does, is you hire that company, and then he organizes that for these protests. And
it's a good business model.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's very, very common that, if you do a man on the street interview and you go out there and you go, and I've seen some of these, they literally say, so what are you out here protesting? We're protesting Trump. Well, what is it specifically that, or Elon Musk? Let's use Musk. We're protesting Elon Musk. Okay, well, what exactly are you protesting? He looks around. We just think he's a bad guy. And you're looking around, you go, yeah, but specifically, what's he doing to hurt our nation. He's looking, he's like, well, I can't really get into all the specifics, but we're just out here just protesting his oppression, you know.
Yeah.
And you can tell that they don't spend a lot of time educating. They just want people to go out, scream, here's some signs, there's protest. Now, of course, there's people who are like-minded to that, who, let's say in this case, hate Elon Musk. And so when they find out there's going to be a protest or a rally, so let's say it's the LGBTQ movement, okay? So hey, there's going to be a protest. They will have some paid organizers sometimes, or they'll have somebody pouring money into an LGBTQ organization to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because he's necessarily passionate about that. He knows that that's anything that's pushing against people like George Soros. It's anything that's pushing against traditional values that he's trying to tear down. He's trying to undermine American societies. I mean, he hates America. There's no doubt.
I'm back up a little bit. Who is George Soros, and why does he hate America?
Oh, now I feel like a protester because I'm like, well, I wasn't really prepared to talk about George Soros.
I never heard of his name before you mentioned it. I was kind of like, why? I know there's a lot of people that hate America.
I researched him at one time and got into some of the. I think he is from either Hungary or Romanian, but he is somebody who has obtained wealth, I think, through real estate. But again, don't hold me to that. But he's somebody that you'll hear come up in debates all the time. Yeah. And it was one of the things that, when Hillary and now you hear a lot from Bernie Sanders talking about, that's what the No Kings protest was about. And then oligarchs, and that he and AOC are going around the country talking about these evil billionaires. Well, he used to talk about evil millionaires until he became one.
Yep.
And now he's gone up to evil billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
But George Soros, like Elon Musk everybody on the right loved him, richest man in the world. So if you're on the left and you hate the right, then you're gonna trash Elon Musk because he was donating to Trump. Well, the people on the right trash George Soros because he's the protagonist billionaire on the left. And I don't know all that stems for his hatred for America, but he is heavily involved in protests. He's heavily involved in politics and donating causes that he thinks bring about a disruption and sometimes against America's systems, but also against traditional values or structures.
Sometimes people just protest acknowledgement of smarts, success. They just don't like rich people. They don't like people. I mean, particularly if they come from a society where they feel like everything should be shared. We know that they're out there, socialism or anything else. But a lot of people, I can't pay for my health care, and so I don't like you because you're making more money and you need to share it with me. I know people like that.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, you just see it. You just saw a guy win the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York. He's Muslim. He is. We're gonna pay for everything by taxing the rich. Everything's gonna be free.
Yeah, buses,
everything's gonna be free. Now, here's the fallacy behind. Oh yeah, we're gonna do away with all the police. All the drugs are gonna be legal. On and on and on. Here's the fallacy. They have an exact model of that in London. Have had it for years, and that's why London has become an armpit. And it looks nothing like the London of old because of those policies. So it's actually those policies that end up hurting people, because here's exactly what's going to happen. People who are wealthy, even if you are on the left, when you start, villainizing them and saying, we're going to tax you and we're going to keep taking more and more and more and not require anything else of society, then they're going to say, okay, I'm leaving, because they can get on a plane and fly out, have an attorney change their home of record to Florida and be gone in a second.
Yep.
They even came up with an exit tax. Like if you moved out of New York and made a certain amount of money, that they would exit tax you, and businesses, things like that, because that's exactly what's happening. Matter of fact, one of the things that Democrats are concerned about right now is in 2030, they do a census every 10 years. If you look at the top 10 states that have lost populations, they're all blue states. Now, I think that's very telling and obvious. So what's going to happen is they do congressional seating based on the population and where they are. So with this population shift, Democrats could lose, 8 or 10 seats in Congress.
Big. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to lose them to red states. And so my whole point is, going all the way back to a protest, that when you look at, all of a sudden it just pops up and it's everywhere. Like, you haven't heard anything about it. It's but somebody has to pay that money to get it all started, to pay for the media, to get your paid, people who live in the grievance area, and they go out there. And of course, once it's established, and then once they get out there in their individual community, that's why I think they said it was 20,000 protests of no kings or whatever. Some of them were just a few people, but so many towns had them. But a lot of that came about. You see these pre-printed signs. Now, you and I probably didn't hear any rally call.
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
it's a Ford imprint commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, how did all these people know about this protest and show up? But it all originates somewhere, and all that costs money, and that coordination, and there's somebody organizing it, paying for it.
And to go back to your point a little bit, from the socialism standpoint, and this New York mayor, it sounds really good, because there is a lot of poverty in New York. And if you're telling me I could ride the bus, that's certainly going to be a game changer for me. You have to look after, no one's looking after the city itself or the people around there. It's all about me. Am I better off 4 years now than I was 4 years ago? Blah, 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 blah. But basically what you're doing, though, is by using that lower income social cultured vote, you're empowering them to go out and push the envelope to get you elected. And then once you get elected, you blow the damn thing up. And by that time, you've pissed off the rich people, they're gone. Now you've got this middle to lower class people that get to ride a bus for free, telling them how it's going to be, and you turn into be the armpit like London. I mean, it's just
if you build support based on, okay, here's all the good things I'm going to give you, here's all the free stuff.
Yeah.
All right. And so then, as long as you're giving out the free stuff, then think about it. If you're building a more permanent, because you're not incentivizing people to change their structure, you're making it easier to live poverty. Now, I don't want to misunderstand. I've lived my whole nonprofit adult life in trying to elevate people out of poverty and help them overcome barriers. So there's people that need help, but with that has to come a bigger idea of, here's an aspect of society right now, as you're in poverty and it's struggles, but you also are the recipient of tax dollars and benefits and SNAP and all those kind of things. We want to transition you into being a more productive member of society, where you're pouring back into society rather than draining society. But
and that's exactly what you've done in a lot of things. You did it with Jimmy Hall Mission.
Yeah.
You're doing it now. You want people to rise up so they can end up giving back to your enterprise.
That's right. But if you incentivize and make it easier to stay in poverty, I'm not talking about giving people the tools they need to overcome barriers, but I'm talking about just making it like, staying in poverty is the goal, and I'm going to make sure that you don't have any needs.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're creating a more robust poverty state, one that has no interest in the overall good of their community.
No. Their
interest is how the community is serving them. And so they make decisions based on what's good for them, not what's based on good, for the community. And that inevitably ends up going that you run out of resources, you run out of money, you run out of way, and then there's the pushback that comes with that. But having said all that, what we really wanted to focus on, or I wanted to talk to you about, was this whole idea is the No Kings protest, does it change minds? Do these protests, all protests have some element to it, whether it's violent or non-violent, it brings to light an issue at least. Okay.
Yep.
So it catches news. So every news mentions this No Kings protest. And so they'll ask, okay, what's this about? Well, they're protesting because Donald Trump is making decisions and he's bypassing Congress and he thinks he's a king. So it's a pushback against Donald Trump. So in most communities, it was very, very peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But inevitably, when you have protests nowadays and you have counter protests, it ends up leading to violence and all that kind of stuff. And so it inevitably begs the question, what's more productive towards accomplishing your goals? And again, it all depends on what your goals are. When we still look back today, we marvel at what Martin Luther King Jr. and his followers in the civil rights movement were able to accomplish. But when you look back at it now, you're like, okay, they were truly fighting for equality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about against microaggressions and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the ability to, just from a humanity standpoint, to be able to enter in and sit down in a restaurant, to be able to use the same bathrooms, to drink from the same water fountain, to have access to the same jobs and education and all those kind of things. Just basic human decency. And here they were, they had water hoses, they had dogs, they had all sort of force and policemen and sticks and just everything. And they just kept coming out. They were well dressed. And what they ended up doing was, when they saw what they were fighting for, so they brought awareness. But if Martin Luther King would have been vicious, if he would have created rioting and burning cars and smashing windows and all those kind of things, then it would have been easy to stereotype him as some thug who just wants to be famous, and he would not have had near the impact that he did. When I look at protests today, if it's people, I mean, like you and I were talking about earlier, it's so ingrained in our society, the freedom of speech, the freedom to protest, the freedom to say, I disagree with the president, or I disagree with a community mayor, or whatever. I mean, there's many countries that would kill to have that right to be able. I just heard about people who in Iran, they got some people who were protesting, and they arrested hundreds of them, but they actually already tried and executed just within the last week. There were 3 people who were tried and executed. And just for speaking out against, the regime. So we take those things for granted. So I will
say this real quick. When Donald Trump said that if you protest my military parade or you get in the way, there's going to be an incredibly huge backlash. That scared me just a little bit, because I'm not saying we're going to stand in front of tanks. We had something like that. He wanted to do something like that when he was the 45th president. Didn't work. And I love the fact that he's being honest, saying it's time to show off a little bit. And then you throw in the fact that we just bombed Iran and it all kind of coincided together. That bothered me just a little bit, because I'm thinking to myself, hey, listen, we live off protest, and I think we're over protest. I think I'm the point now where every time you turn the TV on, there's a protest, and I don't know if they even mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're protesting. But I will say that I just wanted to mention the fact, because I know some people that kind of bothered them a little bit, because he specifically said, don't mess with my birthday. don't mess with my parade, or I'm going to F you up.
Now, and he has said things in the past that have been very provocative. It was rumored that he told Kim Jong-un when he met with the North Korean leader, and that was very controversial, that he said, in some ways, I envy you because you say it, people have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very dictatorial in nature. Now, and so when you say things like that, then you have now created a filter by which people who oppose you, everything you say and do gets put through that filter. So, oh yeah, that's just, he says something like that. Oh, that just reaffirms his desire to be a dictator, to take America. But the reason I think all of that is so overblown is because the way our system is, no man, no single person has the ability to destroy our democracy. Okay. Now, even if he said that, he could tell the police, okay, you arrest these people. Well, just because President Trump tells them to arrest a protester doesn't mean cops are
Sure.
going to do that. I mean, cops have
Yeah.
the ability to push back. But let's say he was able to influence that, and let's say they did, then they had the ability through the court systems to sue, local jurisdictions for false arrests and all that. So the idea that Trump can just get out and mandate and then our society is going to crumble down, because the founders of our Constitution made it in a balanced way that, you have the judiciary. Well, the judiciary doesn't need an army because we have the whole idea of we respect the right of law, and when something says it, we have to conform. Now I know Trump pushes back and goes, I don't care if the judge says yes, and that's all just, I get it. But right now, what's in the news is there's a district judge who the Supreme Court's already ruled on an issue, and a district judge says no, but they didn't do this, and it looks like that now this district judge is taking this pushing back against the Supreme Court. I'm just saying, our system is set up and it's so balanced. It's not perfect in the sense that you can have bad actors, but Donald Trump, if it was his number one purpose to overtake America, to where the courts had no power, to where Congress had no power, there's no appetite among the people or our elected officials to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. At least there's no evidence, even with all his influence and all of his bolstering.
And I think by bringing up the threat of that should be enough to create enough that it will never happen. You know what I mean? I mean, I have no problem with people bringing that stuff up. I don't. I mean, I think it's silly, but I mean, keep bringing it up because I will say this: that SOB is getting more done. I've never seen a president work his ass off. I don't know what the hell he's done. I don't know how often he hits the golf course. I know he loves to play golf, but it seems like every time I turn the TV on, he's flying somewhere, meeting with somebody, shaking hands. It's been amazing. How much he's got done in this really short period of time. So I want to go back to our original thought on just protest in general and close it up here. Have you ever been a part of a protest?
I never have. I've never gone and walked in solidarity with that, in part because I've always questioned the effect of it. And I do think, though, you can influence people, but I think if you end up making it violent, if you end up screaming in people's faces, if you cannot explain calmly and logically what your position is, then I think you end up doing more harm to the cause. Yep. I mean, look at Black Lives Matter. Now, that movement's kind of fallen apart because the leaders of that, bought the mansions out in LA. Like, where's all the money? Where's all the effect? And pendulums kind of swung back against that more radical perspective. But a lot of people, you had Black Lives Matter, and then, you had Antifa intermixed with that, a lot of violence, So when you think about that, that's what the lasting memory is. Yes, it gets more press. It calls more attention. Hey, we're sick of this happening, and so we're going to burn this car. But when you think about LA riots right now and protests, you're you're thinking about the damaged businesses, the disruption. And so did they get the word out? Yes. But are they influencing people?
Mm-hmm.
So the guy that's burning the car up and then he's running around the car with a Mexican flag protesting illegal immigration against ICE.
Yeah.
Or protesting ICE, hunting illegal immigrants. And so the question is a guy who is destroying property and raising a flag of the country that he snuck out of and came to our country illegally, is the average person at home going, you know what, I really like this guy. I think, no, he's just creating havoc.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our news doesn't seem to cover the quiet protests as much as they do the violent ones, and I get that. And you can sit there and the more I've been in the media, I'm not a journalist, but I've been in the media for 45 years. I get it. I understand it. We have to ask the tough questions. But yeah, unfortunately, if there's not being bottles thrown, we really don't care. It's not going on. It's not going on the 6 o'clock news because there's nothing to talk about. So.
If I was going to organize a protest against my city or for a particular issue, whatever it would be, then I will want to make sure that I was, educating as much as possible as to what we stand for. Here's our principles. The rules of it is we're not going to yell in people's faces, even if we're counter protesters or whatever, and that we want to come across as the same ones. Even if I'm counter protesting, I've seen people effectively counter protest, not by shouting down the other person, but just by quietly standing there with a message on their shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And be when I'm interviewed and people are trying to provoke. People are going to call you names. People are going to say radical things. So I will defend our right, for everybody's right to protest and to have their voices heard. I love all of that. That's one of the things that makes our country great. But I think when you cross the line, I'm not even arguing it from a legality standpoint or a criminal standpoint. I'm just saying, if you truly are passionate about an issue, individually, maybe the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
If you raise it up,
it's a lot of squeaky wheels out there.
But collectively, you come across as obnoxious, a bully, and I just think you're going to end up turning more people off to your cause than you're going to sway people to say from your side.
My thing is, don't these people work? I always wondered how they. How they got 16,000 people in the streets of LA, and I'm like, don't you guys have work to do? I mean, seriously. I mean, I couldn't take, unless it was a Saturday afternoon or something. I can't take a whole damn day off and go protest something.
I think that's why a lot of people are saying, not only do you have the organization, but you get a lot of people coming out there, and because you're slipping them 50s and all that to go out there and yell for an hour.
Yeah, I guess I could make a couple of dollars myself if that would be the way to go.
Right.
What do you do for a living? I'm a professional protester. They probably exist out there. Mission Mind, keep your mind, mission your mind. Following this show here, of course, on our network of radio stations on TKR, we do Bite by Bite. That's going to be coming here next, specific to the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Michael, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, guy.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.